speaking of people who are terrible at things, ladies and gentlemen, if I may, one of the single biggest jackhole on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, the guy who employed a white supremacist who used anti-gay and racist language and anti-Semitic language in chat rooms under a pseudonym for a long time, and supposedly Tucker didn't know. The dude he hung out with the most at work had no idea he was on this thing and under this name. Okay, so Tucker Carlson tonight, and this is interesting. This is why this video stuck out to me, because Tucker's usually very boring. And tonight will probably be no different. But the title of this stuck out to me. Tucker, this is a power grab. See that part? This is a power grab. Now, the reason it stuck out to me was because I was like, that sounds familiar. Was that the title of and this is today, this is May 30, or yesterday, this is May 31st, 1 million views of this video already, 1 million. 9 million subscribers to Fox News and 1 million active viewers on Tucker. Now, that's very possibly a fake number, but that's okay. 47,000 thumbs ups to 1 million views. That seems strange. That's a little off. By the way, like and subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. I would like those numbers to match out because you are actually real people. But here's why this shit stuck out to me. I just did a quick hunt. This is today's 20 hours ago. Tucker, this is a power grab. Tucker calls Elizabeth Warren's latest plan to make herself more powerful. House proxy voting rule has become a Pelosi power grab. And this was just a random Democrats doing anything to say power. They use the word power a lot. Bruce, extreme left is unleashing most diabolical power grab in history. DC. About creating Stephen Miller warns Americans this is the biggest power grab we've ever seen. Power grabby. And then Tim Pool on big tech's power grab. This is a fairly common refrain. It's always about grabbing them by the power. I grabbed the power. And I grabbed the power. And okay. Sorry, I'm being stupid. But just to prepare you for this. Now, again, this is 15 minutes long. If it gets boring, we'll bail out. But this is more than likely, judging from the timing on this, this says, Fox News host reacts to the politicization of the Texas school shooting on Tucker Carlson tonight. By the way, for the record, as a Democrat, I'm here to tell you I'm in no way, when I talk about guns, politicizing the Uvalde shooting. I am politicizing 5 shootings ago. Just always assume that the things I'm asking for as far as gun reform and and registration changes and who can get a gun and who can't, and all that kind of, like, all my reactions are knee-jerk, immediate reactions to things that happened 3.5 years ago. This is assume that I'm actually reacting, to that, not the most recent one. Because the assumption is we're always reacting to the last one, even though we haven't been able to do fuck all about the rest of them because of all the Republicans in power. People vote.
Welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight.
I don't feel welcome. Maybe it's just me.
It was a week ago today that a deranged teenager called Salvador Ramos murdered 19 children and 2 teachers in an...
Did he do one? Hold on. But weighs in on the Buffalo shooter's final take on Democrats discussing points out President Biden used race politics to capitalize. He also...
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. There was a horrifying, we're sad to tell you, a horrifying amount of violence in the United States over the weekend, as increasingly there is. Over just 2 days, at least 104 Americans were shot to death in major American cities. That's a lot. How many? Well,
By the way, this is how he led off the Buffalo shooting thing. I did a search on Tucker Carlson Buffalo shooting. The idea is whatever. Yeah, sure. Racist cited Tucker Carlson in his reason for murdering a bunch of older black people in a grocery store, and he specifically cited Tucker's theory about the Great Replacement and all that kind of shit. But when you can't just dive right into that if you're name checked in the dude's manifesto. You know what I mean? You got to ease into it by saying crime is happening all over the place. Also, today he's wearing a Don Jr. adjacent shirt. Apparently, this is part of the uniform, though. He's in a checks pattern thing.
Elementary school in Texas. You know this because we've had 7 days of full saturation coverage, and it's all.
Yeah, you only know about the shooting because the news just won't leave it the fuck alone. That's why, not because it's newsworthy.
All deserved. Given that, it's amazing what we still don't know about what happened that day.
It's a mystery. What happened?
Let's start, just because it's the most obvious, with how the shooter could possibly have afforded the firearms he used. Salvador Ramos was...
Yes, that's the problem. Guns are too cheap in the United States, and Tucker's here to do something about it. I'm kidding. It's the only loan you can get in that part of Texas.
He's 18 years old. He worked part-time at the drive-thru at a local Wendy's. Yet police say he had at least $4,000 of brand new weapons.
Gee, it's almost like if you add that up, most loners can afford that with pocket change.
Including 2 AR-15 rifles, 1,600 rounds of .556 ammunition, a ballistic vest, and 60 magazines. One of Ramos's rifles was a high-end model manufactured by a company called Daniel Defense.
Yeah, that's the one he actually used to murder everybody there.
According to a receipt that Ramos posted in a private message, that gun cost...
Oh, I didn't realize you were sharing your private DMs with him, Tucker.
$2,000, and he paid in full. Now, Ramos could have bought effectively the very same rifle at any gun store for a third of the cost. But apparently, to Ramos, price was no object. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's almost as if gun nuts pride themselves on buying top-of-the-line gun thing. Oh, Andrea, thank you so much. A 666 super chat as soon as Tucker Carlson's face arrives. What a joy.
If police know where Ramos got the money to buy one of the most expensive AR-15s on the market, they're not telling us.
I'm assuming his job?
Nor, for that matter, have they explained why they lied about the most basic facts of the shooting. For the first 24 hours, they told us that a school resource officer fired at the gunman. He, quote, engaged Ramos. But they must have known at the time they said it that that was not true. They must know the resource officer was not even at the school when Ramos arrived. But they told us
yeah, Texas tends to lie about these things.
Otherwise. Why'd they do that?
Because they wanted to make it appear as though they were already handling something they don't really give a rat's ass about.
And by the way, how long was Ramos outside the school firing his gun at people at a nearby funeral home before he went inside and killed children?
I don't know, it's Texas. At this point, how do you even have a funeral without somebody shooting at you?
That seems like a fairly simple question.
Yeah, ask Greg Abbott.
Certainly an important question.
Yeah, in a blue state, you'd have somebody tell you right away.
Last week, authorities told us that Ramos was outside the school for 10 to 12 minutes. Here's the claim.
We got a crash and a man with a gun. And then you have responding officers. That's what it is. If it's 12 minutes, from 11:30 to 11:40, that's the information we have.
12 minutes from 11:30 to 11:40. That's the information we have. Quote, but that information is clearly wrong because 11:30 to 11:40
is 10 minutes. Who gives a shit? He's making a point that they made the crash happened, and then 10 minutes later, some people are saying 12. That's the information we have. Like, this is mincing words.
Is not 10 minutes. The timeline matters. So what's the real timeline? Well, on Friday...
Here's the timeline. He checked himself in for a psych eval and stayed overnight in a mental institution 2 years ago. And 2 years ago should have been denied the ability to buy a gun as soon as he turned 18.
The director of Texas DPS came up with a brand new timeline. Here it is.
11:28. The suspect vehicle crashes into the ditch.
See, that's where the guy said 11:30 versus 11:28. For fuck's sake.
As previously described, the teacher runs to the room 132 to retrieve a phone, and that same teacher walks back to the exit door, and door remains propped open. At 11:33, the suspect begins shooting into room 111 or 112. It's not possible to determine from the video angle that we have at this point in time.
So actually, and that was the director of public safety
in Texas. In Texas, right? Greg Abbott's Texas. Donald Trump's, how are the Democrats ever going to win here if they're against God, guns, and oil? You mean that state?
It was only 5 minutes that Ramos was outside shooting at people. Okay. But here's the key takeaway from that statement.
Clearly, this is all a conspiracy by the Texas safety director and Greg Abbott and the fucking Texas Rangers. I don't know. Will you bring on Chuck Norris and ask him?
They want you to believe the back door to the school was open because a teacher at the school left it open after going outside to retrieve a phone. So it's the teacher's fault that Ramos was able to get inside. That's what they said on Friday. But this, too, appears to be untrue.
Or a mistake. Or they were going on the information they had at the fucking time. And again, what do we know about the most recent shooters that we've had? That 50% of them quoted Tucker Carlson. How about that? The two biggest shooters we've had, half of them quoted Tucker Carlson. Which one is he spending more of his time on? The one with a Hispanic name, who was born, I think, in Iowa.
The Houston Chronicle is reporting tonight that surveillance footage of the school shows that the teacher slammed the door after running back inside. And
so the teacher wasn't at fault.
Of course, that would make sense, since by this point, Ramos was firing his rifle. And that same teacher was using the phone in question to make a panicked call to 911. No one disputes that. So why did the authorities tell us otherwise?
Because they didn't know from the surveillance footage that they had who was who, or whether or not that door fully closed, or how he got inside at that time. And the only footage they had, more than likely, was that there was a door. Oh, fuck. Yeah, the door didn't lock. And who gives a fuck? Honestly. Anything but blame the gun that the dude had. That he could afford, even with a part-time job, to buy anti-personnel weapons. An AR-15 is a pipe bomb you can use over and over again.
And for that matter, why did they initially deny that the on-scene police commander ordered cops to stand down and remain outside as children were being shot to death inside the school?
That's something you would have to ask the governor of Texas, who, if it was a Democratic governor, you would be raining hot hell down on them, asking for them to step down. Not just them, every Democratic legislator. If this was California, if this was fucking Illinois, for that matter, with a mixed bag of people, everybody has to go. Michigan, for fuck's sake. They'd be like, oh, well, fucking abduct her then.
On Thursday, a spokesman for Texas DPS called that account a rumor, quote. But there was videotape to show that it was true. It actually happened. So the next day, forced by the videotape, Texas DPS admitted.
Not forced. He heard the rumor, and then he saw the tape. Again, what the fuck?
True. Watch.
What efforts were the officers making to try and break through either that door or another door, get inside that classroom?
None at that time.
Why? Why?
The on-scene commander at the time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject.
Sir, you have people who are alive, children who are calling 911 saying, please send the police. They are alive in that classroom. There are lives that are at risk.
Hey, we're well aware of that. Obviously.
Obviously, this is Texas. And somebody walking around on school grounds armed to the teeth in a bulletproof vest is not at all weird. I mean, that's what gym teachers wear down here. It's, you're in macho land. And in macho land, we wear macho clothes and do macho things. And one of the things we like to do and like to see done and like to watch people do is wander around elementary school parking lots and across the lawn with an AR-15 and enough rounds and magazines to kill everybody there, like a human dose of fentanyl. You know what I mean?
Based upon the information we have, there were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation and not a barricaded subject.
But that's not really an explanation, of course, because
he's getting information from people who are covering their ass. And again, if the dude had a revolver, this would be less of a problem. If the dude had been red flagged once he had accumulated a certain amount of ammo, this would have limited this. They would have been aware, like, hey, that's the fucking guy you guys did a door knock on who's got 1,600 rounds of ammunition and has written a bunch of shit that he's going to shoot up a school. That's why.
no one disputes that everyone on the scene, including police, knew that Ramos had weapons, was firing them at people to kill people, and was inside the school with children. No one disputes that. So why did heavily armed police units decide not to stop Salvador Ramos?
I think you should interview Greg Abbott. Fish stinks from the head. Leadership of the state can speak out about this, and he's in charge of this. He apparently, well, I'm kidding. I'm fucking with you. Obviously, it's Kamala Harris's fault.
From executing children. Now, it's not finger pointing to ask that question. These are very complicated circumstances. People are under immense pressure. People make mistakes. But
I'm trying to drag this out and make it look like the last person responsible is the asshole who sold this clearly insane person a gun. And the rules that allow somebody who's voluntarily committed themselves because they are having fantasies about harming themselves and others can still buy a gun as soon as they turn fucking 18.
We are making long-term policy decisions based on the specifics of what happened last week.
No, they aren't. No one's making long-term policy decisions on what local cops' engagement rules are.
Week in Uvalde, politicians across this country are calling for militarizing America's elementary schools.
Excuse me, Republicans are asking to arm teachers. Politicians aren't. Republicans are.
And yet they can't answer why the military force effectively outside this elementary school refused to stop the killing.
Why don't you interview the Republican elected official that oversees the district?
So this massacre could have been prevented at some point.
Yeah, it could have at some point. Like before this asshole was able to buy guns of that size and that capacity and all those magazines and all that ammo without triggering a red flag at all, considering he had voluntarily committed himself after fantasies of hurting himself and others.
And why was that?
Because you and assholes like you don't give a rat fuck. Don't care. Think that this is, you can't make an omelet without shooting up some elementary schools, and that's just the life. That's what it is.
We should know the answer, but don't hold your breath. No one in power seems anxious to hold themselves accountable for what happened in Uvalde.
No one in power? It's Texas, motherfucker.
And amazingly, and this is so perverse it's hard to believe it's true, but it is, some seem determined to make future school shootings more likely. In California, the state assembly just voted to end the requirement, the long-standing requirement that was put in place after school shootings, that schools alert law enforcement when students, quote, attack, assault, or physically threaten school officials.
California bill could make shootings more likely.
That's no longer in place.
No, it's not.
And according to the Democratic Party, that's a win for equity. We know this because the sponsor of the bill, a California state senator called Stephen Bradford, said so. Here's what he told the Daily Caller, quote, Black students, Latinx students, students of color, and students with disabilities are disproportionately referred to law enforcement, cited, and arrested, end quote. So too many Latinx students in wheelchairs apparently are being blamed for school shootings, so there's no more violence reporting in California.
No, that's not the same thing. If anybody who threatens to blow up the school or shoot up the school is going to get reported, they're talking about regular, like, in-class fighting or teachers saying that anybody who screams is threatening violence. That's not even fucking related.
Schools. At all.
At all.
So how does that help?
No, not at all.
Prevent the next school shooting.
Leaders are using this tragedy to amass more power. It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like, according to you, that they just gave that power away and nobody has the right to call in violence of any, like, fuck off.
Well, of course it doesn't.
Well, of course not. Nothing you've said so far makes any fucking sense.
But it's starting to seem like helping prevent school shootings is not really the point of this exercise. Amassing more power is the point.
Well, if that amassed power doesn't stop the actual shootings, you're not going to have that power for very long, one would think.
And we know this from what's happening north of us. Canada's Botox dictator, Justin Trudeau, wasted no time in using the tragedy in the
I don't know if you want to say Botox dictator that loud in Fox News headquarters. I mean, besides Gutfeld and Janine walking on their way to shoot the 5, or walking home from it, I don't know what fucking time you tape this, or anybody who's on Fox and Friends, I'm guessing the executives there are big on this stuff.
U.S. to his own political advantage in Canada.
Yeah, different rules, different constitution, doesn't fucking matter, unrelated. Also, Australia doesn't have these fucking problems. Norway doesn't have these fucking problems. UK doesn't have these fucking
Now,
problems.
Uvalde is more than 2,000 miles from Ottawa. But because of what Salvador Ramos was allowed to do in Texas, Canadians are no longer allowed to protect themselves.
From who? Sure they are. Canadians can protect themselves. They have an entire legal system set up to protect themselves against unlawful search and seizures, close to what we have down here. Any like undue arrest or anything like that. They've got an entire system set up for them to have representation at the state's expense, to push back against those things if they can't afford their own help. Yeah, they just can't shoot a Mountie because they don't feel like being asked questions at a traffic stop.
Justin Trudeau has introduced a bill that would ban Canadian citizens from buying, selling, and transferring handguns within their own country.
So what? It's Canada. I give a fuck.
Again, handguns were not the cause of the shooting in Uvalde.
No, but they're the majority of the border shootings that happen around them, namely near Detroit and the Canadian border there. That's their biggest concern. You can't buy AR-15s up there. That when they do have shootings, it's because of that.
Uvalde's nowhere near Canada.
So what? It's also way close to Mexico, so I don't know why you're not blaming this on the cartels.
And yet, Justin Trudeau is using that tragedy
to respond to the needs of his constituents in a way that reflects the values of the Canadian people by and large.
to disarm anyone who disagrees with him.
Dude, he doesn't even buy this shit. Look at like he's reading this for the first time.
By the way, that law would empower courts to confiscate guns.
Confiscate
from people, even if they've not committed a crime.
Right, if they buy them illegally.
Watch Justin Trudeau announce this power grab, and as you do watch, pay special attention.
Also, by the way, Tucker, this is a power grab. We're talking about Canadian rules. They don't have the same rights we do. They don't.
To the masked toadies behind him nodding in unison.
We're introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership.
By the way, I think the Botox thing came out, or the Botox slam that Tucker made, is largely because I have to say Trudeau is looking on point these days. He's annoyingly and blazingly handsome.
What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. In other words, we're capping the market for handguns.
Yeah, if you've got them, you can keep them. If you don't, you can't. By the way, this isn't that different from the UK. As far as I know, they still got the Queen and geese on their fucking money.
What's actually happening here is that people like Justin Trudeau know that their rule is illegitimate. They know
no, they don't.
Perfectly well how resented they are, and
what, by you? You're not a fucking Canadian. Who cares?
They spend an awful lot of time thinking about civil unrest. You probably don't.
I don't think a lot about civil unrest. You're right. I don't. Especially civil unrest in Canada.
You live in a democracy, so you don't imagine that anyone needs to be disarmed for political reasons. But people.
Well, he's not disarming people for political reasons. It's for public safety reasons. Any self-defense situation you find yourself in Canada, if you can't handle it with a shotgun or a rifle, you're probably the problem.
People like Justin Trudeau can feel the deep resentment aimed at them.
It's an emotional thing. It's because he's such a girl, isn't it? It's a girly thing. It's because he's all female and feminine and female, girly, girl-like, that he has these feelings.
And they are...
Yeah, Canadian unrest. Sorry about smashing your window. I'm fixing it right now. Sorry. We got a little out of control last night after the hockey game.
Fully intent on disarming the population.
Sorry.
Now, we reached out to Justin Trudeau's office today about this new law. We wanted to know if Trudeau will apply these laws to himself. That's always the first and most important test of sincerity.
Yes, is Justin Trudeau giving up all of his crazy handguns, that silver-plated Colt that has the Cobra on the handle that he carries everywhere?
If it's good for me, it ought to be good for you too. And
by the way, he means, like, did he disarm his security? No, because those are state-appointed people who are dealing with threats for people who break outside the law, not average citizens in that regard.
Vice versa. So, in this case, will Justin Trudeau's state-funded bodyguards be released?
Right. No, because they're state-funded bodyguards of a head of state. Because Canada doesn't want their fucking head of state assassinated, asshole.
Relinquishing their handguns and how?
No.
But they're banned AR-15s. But of course, we're not allowed to know the answers to that question because he.
No, I'll give you the answer. No, they're not. It's totally different.
He's in power and we're not. Quote.
Yes, he's in power in Canada, and you're not even a Canadian fucking citizen.
We do not comment on matters related to the Prime Minister's security, his office responded. Meaning, of course not. Justin Trudeau isn't that stupid.
Also, how the fuck did we get from a Texas school shooting to Canadian security for the Prime Minister? This is some of the laziest pushback I have ever fucking seen. It's childish beyond measure, but it's also just, like, I guess they're praying for the ignorance of their viewers. That's what they do up there in Canada, man. They just run the whole place like a dictatorship. You know what I mean? It's like they're almost a quasi-monarchy or something.
He's going to continue to protect his own family.
Right. Because he's the head of a state that's, in this case, helping Ukraine defend itself and therefore might be a target for assassination by the Russians and others.
Not going to be allowed to protect yours in Canada.
Well, no, you've got Mounties that will protect you and yours. You can have a rifle and you can have a shotgun. You just can't carry a handgun hidden in public because what's the fucking point?
Now, here in the United States, as always, Democrats are watching very carefully.
Power grab. The donkey and a confused Joe Biden.
What Trudeau is up to as they plan our future here.
I see. Yes, we're all taking our cues from Justin Trudeau.
And
our leaders never let a tragedy go to waste.
Already the rhetoric of the Democratic Party has changed for years. Democrats, Joe Biden, his supporters, the media have talked about banning AR-15s, the so-called weapons of war, which are not in fact used by any military. But
well, no, they're anti-personnel weapons. Again, an AR-15 is a pipe bomb that you can reuse. You can reload it and aim it at another group of school kids or feral pigs, I guess, whatever your fancy is.
Weapons of war have been their focus. Watch.
The venom of the haters and their weapons of war.
Assault-style weapons that are weapons of war.
And purchase these weapons of war.
To get these weapons of war.
Finally ridding our streets of weapons of war.
Yeah, largely they're talking about magazine capacity, fucko. If you need an AR-15 to shoot feral pigs, get a secondary license for one. Create a separate category for them. But if you live in a suburb, I'm guessing the feral pigs you're going to shoot are either going to be police officers or your fucking neighbors or a bunch of toddlers nearby.
What we should be doing is taking these weapons of war out of the hands of civilians.
Because they see what these weapons of war do on the street.
An assault weapon is a weapon of war.
Also, important distinction, she's saying assault weapon if you're saying the AR-15 isn't an assault weapon. And by the way, AR and AR-15 stands for abortion rifle. It's assault rifle.
With no place in a civil society.
They wouldn't know what end the bullet comes out of. They know.
You don't think so? Fucko, she was an AG. She was a DA. Of course she knows more about guns than you do, fucko. They all know how to shoot. They all have gun training.
Know nothing about this topic.
No, what they know is that you don't need that many fucking bullets for self-defense. And if you do, it's because you're defending yourself against police officers serving a lawful warrant in a system where you get free representation if you can't afford it. So there's no reason to fucking murder the cops rather than just get arrested and go through the process. So you can sue them later for unlawful detention.
They don't even know the basic crime stats. In the United
Well, the basic crime stats are that most gun deaths happen because of handguns, and the concern that they have about these mass shootings is that they do happen more often with extended magazine rifles like the AR-15 or other versions of the AR-15.
States rifles kill fewer people every year than.
Yeah, but they do them in huge chunks and randomly. Because if you pair them against, I don't like Dave, Dave doesn't like me, bang, bang, Dave and I are shooting at each other, that's not a concern for most people who don't know me or Dave. They don't give a rat fuck. But if you're at the grocery store, now you got to worry about, is some asshole going to wander in with enough magazines to hold off the police in the fucking parking lot for hours while they kill everyone?
Than fists or knives do. There's no effort afoot to ban knives or fists.
Because you can't, because that's a part of someone's body, and knives kill more people 1-to-1. Again, in none of these situations has a knife ever traveled through a wall and a block away, or through a wall in a porch and killed a kid in their fucking bed. It's about getting on with natural life. You're never going to outlaw criminality, but the rest of us should be able to we should be in a situation where we can make a value judgment about where we are and how safe we will be, and not have to go, fuck, I'm going to Target, wonder if today's the day some nutcase with a grudge against the world decides, this Target will be the one I shoot up.
But weapons of war have long been their focus, meaning AR-15s.
Right. Because that's the one that interrupts regular life.
The single most popular self-defense rifle.
No, nobody defends themselves with an AR-15. No, the single most popular self-defense weapon is probably a Glock, and it's probably one with 9 bullets in it. And it doesn't have a one of those gadgets on the back of it that turns it full automatic. It doesn't have a fucking drum magazine, and it doesn't require like a 30 round magazine extender on it. That's the most common. Hold on. Let's look it up. Hold on. Most common gun used in self-defense shootings. Let's see. Let's see, which I'm trying to find the actual model. Gun using national service. Guns are used throughout AR-15. What it is, what it can do. There you go. Now, here's weapons used in mass shootings in the United States between 1982 and May 2022 by number of weapons and incidents. Shotguns, the lowest. Rifles, handguns. Now, the reason is number of weapons used 146, number of incidents 98. The number of incidents, number of weapons. Okay, so that's what you're seeing here. Rifles, this is the AR-15, 59 and 51. Much tighter number, interestingly enough. So you need more of them. Yeah, okay. Guns used in mass shootings, 82 to 22. And by the way, it kind of matters now. Is there a time on this that I can shorten this? Let's see. Show source additional information. No, I don't need that. Get out of here. Let's see. Add this kind of there. Yeah, because in handguns, you're going to see like 3 people shot. Anything over 3 people is considered a mass shooting. 3 to 4 victims. Let's see. Involvement of semi-automatic rifles in mass shootings. Owing to their use in several high-profile mass shootings, there has been much public discussion over suitability or necessity of assault weapons for the purpose of self-defense. While any definition of assault weapon is contentious, semi-automatic rifles are generally the main focus of debates around this issue. Since 1985, there has been a known total of 50 mass shootings involving rifles, mostly semi-automatics. That's the AR-15. This figure is underreported, though, as it excludes the multiple semi-automatic and fully automatic rifles used in the 2017 Las Vegas Strip Massacre, the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, killing 58, wounding 546. In fact, semi-automatic rifles were featured in 4 of the 5 deadliest mass shootings being used in the Orlando nightclub massacre, Sandy Hook, and the Texas First Baptist Church massacre. Mass shootings and gun control. Despite the evidence of strict gun control measures reducing frequency and severity of mass shootings in countries like Australia, citizens of the United States remain deeply divided over the issue, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there you go. Since 1985, there's been 50 mass shootings involving rifles, mostly semi-automatics. This figure is underreported, though, as it excludes the multiple semi-automatic and fully automatic rifles used in the 2017 Las Vegas Strip Massacre, the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, killing 58 and wounding 546. Now, just excluding that alone, from where that motherfucker was in Vegas, up in the in Mandalay Bay or wherever, overlooking that crowd, firing from that far away with a handgun, there is no way you kill 58 people and wound 546 with handguns, period, end of fucking story. That's why people are concerned, because this guy was able to do it, shoot up a bunch of people who were at a concert from blocks away, effectively.
In the United States, self-defense is the point.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Macho posturing is the point. Most of these fuckers, a handgun is one thing, because you could say that's for your self-defense if you're constantly under threat, if your ex has been caught trying to hire people to murder you and you get a concealed carry or a open carry permit, something like that. But if you're walking around with an AR-15, you are a target if anybody wants to empty the place.
On Sunday, Congressman Adam Kinzinger has decided, and says it out loud, that in order for him to feel safe, we're going to need to confiscate your rifle because he feels unsafe. Watch.
Congressman, you do still oppose a ban on the kind of assault weapons that were used in the shooting. Can you explain why private citizens need weapons of war?
Look, I have opposed a ban, fairly recently. I think I'm open to a ban now.
Can you explain, Congressman, why private citizens need weapons of war? Now, CNN anchors need to be surrounded by bodyguards with weapons of war because they're important, but you and your family?
Well, no, because they're specific rando targets. And CNN, insofar as I know, none of the people there are walked to their fucking car by people with AR-15s, for fuck's sake, in New York City or anywhere else. This is a fucking cartoon. Yeah. If guns are so important to self-defense, why aren't they allowed in the NRA gatherings? Why can't you bring one into a gun show?
No, you don't need weapons of war. So for years, it's been about the AR-15, but things are changing. Joe Biden is now calling for a ban on the ubiquitous 9mm round. Watch this.
A 9mm bullet blows the lung out of the body. So the idea of these high-caliber weapons is there is simply no rational basis for it in terms of about self-protection, hunting.
I see. So he's basically able to go after ammunition sales in a way that guns you can't do anything about. Yeah, you're allowed to own a gun nobody makes bullets for. That's true. This is actually a fabulous workaround.
I remember, the Constitution, the Second Amendment, was never absolute. You couldn't buy a cannon when the Second Amendment was passed.
So there's a guy who can't even recognize his own wife of 40 years in public lecture.
That's the whole, like, they were over his shoulder, wife, sister on either side, and they were supposed to be on one side, and they looked at the other, and he obviously did. He didn't end up mouth kissing his sister, did he? No. So you're just, this is like the Botox dig.
Us about what the rational basis is for this or that. Quote, there's simply no rational basis for the 9mm round in terms of self-protection. Well, of course, the opposite is true. The 9mm is the main self-protection round in the United States.
It's also the main murder round in the United States. It is the main round used by people to kill other people and themselves.
Along with the 5.56, the round used in the AR-15.
Right. Those two things are used to kill more Americans than any other round. And like way more than buckshot, way more than birdshot.
Both of them are small rounds.
So?
People use them to protect their families. And if
yeah, get a 22 or a 38.
If you take them away,
they'll buy a different one.
Americans will no longer be able to defend themselves.
Bullshit. They'll just have to buy a revolver or be able to hit what the fuck they're shooting at in 5 rounds or less. Also, the 9mm, the extended magazine aspect of it is why they became so popular.
In the middle of a crime wave that was...
Can you make your own bullets for the AR-15? Yes, you can make your own bullets for anything. You just have to be able to buy the casings and have your own little press. It's a pain in the ass, though, and most people won't.
Wholly manufactured by the same people who are trying to strip your guns from you. And that's, of course, the point. This is a power grab. And you can be certain...
Well, no. Well, yes, you're trying to grab power back from lunatics. Asshole ammosexuals who don't give a fuck if a bunch of kids are killed every year because they want to walk around in public with looking like a Call of Duty character with a shellfish allergy.
Certain that it is a power grab and not an effort to make...
Yeah, you can get a 30-round magazine for a 9mm pistol. That's why.
This is a safer country because the people who are calling for it are exempting themselves from its requirements.
No. There's a different requirement when you're an elected official or a famous person who might have somebody out to kill you versus a random person because you are a specific target. What they're trying to eliminate is non-specific targets. They go to the grocery too. But you shouldn't have to worry that just because you go to the grocery that you'll have the same targets as a CNN anchor who that somebody wants to kill. Or any random politician.
Once again, that is the acid test. If you're for a law, will it apply to you?
Yes, it does. They won't be able to personally buy one, but they can have armed guards to do it. Or you get a special permit for it. That's the whole point. It's not just, you can't just buy it randomly. Also, you can make your own 9mm rounds.
Michael Bloomberg's bodyguards carry the dreaded 9mm or 223 rounds, so they have high-capacity magazines. Do Nancy Pelosi's bodyguards, which you pay for, do Mitch McConnell's bodyguards carry?
Yeah, but they're state officials. They've sworn an oath to protect people, unlike the Uvalde shooter, whose the only thing he ever swore to was that people were going to see how mad he was.
Carry those rounds? Well, we wanted to know. Why wouldn't we want to know? Why don't we have a right to know? So
this is always stupid. This is the stupidest fucking argument. Well, then why don't they, if they've got police guarding them, you have police guarding you too, fucko, and they don't need to show up wondering who there is going to fire back on them.
We emailed all 3 of their offices today. And unlike, we have to say, Justin Trudeau's office, none of them even bothered to reply to us.
Which I think shows class and taste and breeding on their part.
So obviously they won't be disarming their own bodyguards.
No, they're state officials. That are, by the way, those state officials are just as committed to protecting other innocent civilians in a situation. Let's say they manage to get somebody out, like Secret Service or anybody like that. Somebody's opening fire in an area. Once their principal is cleared, they can stay behind and protect the general populace. They are our bodyguards, you fucking wimp.
They'll keep their own weapons of war. In the meantime, they'll continue...
They're not weapons of war. They're not carrying AR-15s, fucko.
...to pass legislation against weapons they know nothing about. They've been doing this for decades.
No, they haven't. They have not been doing this for decades, or we wouldn't still have this fucking problem.
We did a documentary on this, actually.
Breaking, the Buffalo shooter has been indicted. That's why Tucker is doing this video about Canada and whether Nancy Pelosi has armed guards because she's the female speaker of the fucking House.
Spoke to probably the person who knows more about self-defense weapons than any living American.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Hickok 45, one of the most popular figures on YouTube and truly an expert on the use of firearms.
Hickok 45? Really?
Firearms for self-defense. Here's part of what he told us.
I like shooting people, and if you shoot some... By the way, has anybody asked Tucker which end the bullet comes out of?
And of course, it has the famous Tucker Carlson barrel shroud on it.
Barrel shroud. Guns that Hickok 45 is referring to Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy of New York, who famously didn't understand the firearm she was trying to ban.
Do you know what a barrel shroud is? Time. I actually don't know what a barrel shroud is.
Because it's in your legislation.
It's a shoulder thing that goes up.
No, it's not.
So a barrel shroud makes the rifle more deadly, right?
Yeah, really, shrouds that barrel. A lot of what people come up with that do not know firearms, they just do not like them, they hate them, and so they're looking for reasons to hate them. They don't know anything about the cartridges.
Who gives a fuck about the cartridges? It's the receiving end of the fucking thing that matters in a fair society. And again, this motherfucker lives out in the sticks. I don't want people who live out in the sticks telling people who live in cities and suburbs how they should have to deal with guns in their area. Because this motherfucker could fire this gun in almost any direction and not hit shit. That's not true in a subdivision, and he knows better. The question is, would you blind fire anywhere in your area, wherever you live? This dude would absolutely blind fire anywhere in that area. But you cannot do that in a subdivision and in a fucking school. Here's the question. Would you take this to an elementary school loaded with multiple magazines? Would it be okay if you went in there? Do you trust any of the teachers in there who might be armed to not take it from you? Again, this is one of his Tucker originals. Hands in his pockets, never fired the fucking... I've fired those things before. I'm sure he's done it for television.
A bullet is dangerous. Let's face it.
Yeah, let's face it. How about... No, let's not face it. Let's not face a bullet. Don't face a bullet. You know where it's also dangerous? In the face of a toddler, asshole.
A hammer, a chainsaw, a ladder, a car.
Bullshit. No ladders go through fucking walls and strike people who are eating their fucking cornflakes. There's no such thing as a stray chainsaw.
They're potentially dangerous.
Yes. What do you think the difference is between 6 bullets going astray and 30 bullets going astray from 500 yards away? What do you think the chances are that kids could avoid a swinging chainsaw in a space versus a gun firing like this into a crowd of people? Can the people in that crowd dodge a chainsaw or a ladder or a fucking car better than they can a gun just going bang, 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 pop, 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 right? What a fucking asshole. What a dipshit. Ugh, so gross. And then ultimately, what was this about? The Canadians are sick of fucking handguns making their way into the country from America? Just ban firing pins? Yes. Listen to that. Listen to that ass. How are you not fucking embarrassed? A car is a dangerous thing. Yeah, okay. Tell you what, asshole. Next time a car drives through an elementary school into the classroom and runs over 19 children doing donuts in a fucking class, then we'll have a conversation. Christ, how are you not embarrassed to talk like that?